Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. Obviously, you know, today we're going to be talking about all the books I read in August. Nope, that's not right.
Child. Anyway, so
we are going to be talking about all the books I read in July, and I had an amazing reading month in July. I ended up finishing 10 books, which is way more than I normally read, and I had previously been in a 2.5 month long slump. So this is amazing, really helped me to catch up on my Goodreads reading goal because I was 12 books behind, and now I'm only 6. Stay tuned. So today we're going to talk about all the books I read, and I'm going to let you know, should you read them? Should you not? What were my thoughts? Did I love them? Did I hate them? What's the vibes? That's what we're about to find out. So with that being said, let's get into it. So the first book I ended up finishing in the month of July is Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan. Obviously, I read this on my Kindle, hence me holding up my Kindle. This is the book that my sister-in-law Maria picked for our book club for June, and I ended up finishing it like 2 to 3 days into July, so it still counts for July instead of June. But I ended up really enjoying this. I thought it was a very sweet story. It's a YA queer romance between our two main female characters, and the connection between the two of them was so sweet. It was one of those romances where you can just feel the connection between the two main characters, and it's just so apparent how well they kind of go together and how well they mesh. Like, it was just one of those. It was really, really sweet, and it also does touch on a lot of issues that people in the LGBTQ plus community deal with, especially at school or when they're coming out, and how their families react or how their peers react, those type of things. And I thought that aspect of it was really interesting to read more about, kind of from the perspective of someone going through it. Really enjoyed that aspect of it as well, because I'm not someone who's ever had to go through that, so reading about it was really insightful and just kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to that kind of thing. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It's not something that's like stuck with me, that I like think about this couple all the time and like loved it so much that I was like kicking my feet. Though this book did have me giggling at times. It did have me giggling at times, but it just wasn't a favorite, but I would still recommend this, and I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I ended up reading was the first volume of the Dragon Ball manga. Now, I will say this is 3 volumes, which someone in my comments informed me this is called an omnibus. So I actually ended up reading all 3 of the volumes that is in this one volume, if that makes sense. Like, there's 3 separate books, and it's all in this one. Like, they're just mega size, I guess you could say. I did end up reading all 3 of them in the month of July, not consecutively, but I did read all 3 of them. So that is 3 of the books I read. The first volume is The Monkey King, the second one is Wish Upon a Dragon, and the third one is The Training of I can't say his Japanese name, but those are the volumes I read, and I honestly really enjoyed this. If you're not new here, you know that I watched the whole universe of Dragon Ball anime with my husband Makai. We watched Dragon Ball Z and Super. We have not yet watched GT, but that is not canon, and we have watched the movies that are canon and a couple of the ones that aren't, and him making me watch this with him made me fall in love with it. This is literally one of my favorite universes that I have ever had the pleasure to be a part of. So reading the manga, obviously I know what's happening. I've already gone through all of this in the anime, but it was so fun to go through it all over again. And since I have already seen the anime, as I was reading this, I was hearing the characters' voices in my head, which was really, really fun. I was hearing Goku, how Goku sounds, and Krillin, how Krillin sounds, and Master Roshi, how he sounds, and just like hearing all these people, how they sound in the anime, just like in my head, was really fun and just a fun aspect. And I really enjoyed all 3 of the volumes. I ended up giving all 3 of them a 4 out of 5 stars. They're not 5-star reads because I do honestly love the anime more, but they're so fun, so enjoyable. They're more of a mindless read, where like if I want to sit down and I want to read something and I want to just kind of fall into a book, fall into another universe, but I don't want something that's going to be super crazy, that's just going to be a lot to take in. This is such a great option for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading all 3 of them. Again, not consecutively, but I did enjoy each of them. And next, I ended up doing a full reread of Heavy as the Crown by Lindsay J. Now, this is in a reading vlog. I ended up rereading the first one, and Deadly as a Throne, which is the second one, came out May 30th, and I ended up reading that for the first time in that vlog. So if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend going and watching that. Those are 2 of my favorite fantasy books I've ever read. So if you want to see my reactions, which there's a lot, especially to the last book, please go watch it. Like, genuinely, that is one of the videos I'm most proud of, and I've been getting a lot of positive comments from you guys, which means so much to me. But I ended up doing a full reread of this. Now, I read this for the first time sometime last year, I don't remember what month, and gave it a 5-star. It was the first fantasy book that I had ever really read, and I fell in love with it. It was so good, and doing a reread of it, I was very scared going into it that it wasn't gonna hold up to being a 5-star because I've read other fantasy books since then. I've read ACOTAR, for God's sake, and that's one of my favorite universes also ever. So I was really worried that it wasn't gonna hold up to being a 5-star read because I felt it was going to maybe just feel like it was nostalgic and that's why I loved it, but no. Rereading this, I loved it even more than I did the first time, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I had such a good time reading it the first time. It was the fact of picking up on things that I didn't notice the first time and just falling in love with the main characters even more at this point in my life than I did a year ago. It was so good, so amazing, and I'm so happy that I did a full reread of it. This is the first book that I ever did an entire reread of, and I'm so happy I did. I also cried 10 times harder reading this the second time than I did the first time because I knew it was coming and I was 10 times more attached to the characters, which made it 10 times harder, so.
No question about it, I am ready to get hurt again.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. This book is a 6-star read for me. It was when I first read it, and it is still a 6-star read for me. So 10 out of 10 recommend. If you're gonna read any of the books in this video, this would be one of them. I don't know what's going on. Like, it's not letting me open it to show you the cover. But anyways, the next book I ended up reading is obviously Deadly as a Throne, which is the second in that series. Unfortunately, I don't have a physical copy, so I did read it on my Kindle. But I was so scared going into this book because A, the first book ends on a huge cliffhanger, and B, my sister read it before me, and she was like, Tiffany, you're not ready for what's gonna happen in this book. Like, I'm kind of worried that you're just not prepared. So I was very anxious going into this, and let me just say, I loved this book. I cannot sit here and say that I loved one more than the other. I think I love them equally, and I think that is so crazy because I feel like most of the time when I'm reading a series, especially one that is a continuation of the story, not just an interconnected standalone series like Twisted series or the Chestnut Springs, I'm talking like ACOTAR, like the Inheritance games, a continuation of that story staying with those characters. Normally, when I read those type of things, I end up loving one of them more than the other, and especially the second one. Typically, I love the second one more than the first. I can't say that with this. They are both so good. They both hold a huge chunk of my heart, is these two books, and is this universe, and is Shay, and is All-In, and is and you shouldn't know that, but so much of my brain when I think of books I've read is these books. I was not prepared for what happened in this book, that's for sure. I cried so many times while reading it, I actually lost count, but it was so good. I loved how the story progressed. It was nothing that I was expecting, but it was everything and more. The continuation of relationships between certain characters, and then also seeing new relationships with other characters start to form and blossom and just everything like that. It was so good. It ended on not like a cliffhanger the way the first one did, but it kind of ends on like there's a lot to be done and shit's gonna go down. Shit is inevitably going to go down. This is a trilogy. The third one is not out yet because obviously this just came out. Again, a 6-star read. I highly recommend the series. I cannot recommend it enough. I don't have enough words in my vocabulary to describe how good they are and how much I love them. And if you read them and you hate them, just don't tell me. Just don't tell me because it'll hurt my feelings. No, it's fine. Everybody's book taste is different, but these are books I will never stop recommending. And if you slide in my DMs and you want a book rec and you're someone who reads fantasy, chances are I'm gonna tell you to read these. So that's the next one. After that, I ended up reading I can't. The next book I ended up reading, which is going to be in an upcoming reading vlog, so stay tuned, is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Sneak peek for that reading vlog. I loved this so much. I was very intimidated going into reading this because I loved The 7-Year Slip by her so much, and I had seen a lot of people since this came out, which just came out like a month ago, okay? It's very new, okay? Which you probably knew that. I had seen a lot of people, especially like other booktubers, saying they read this and saying that it didn't live up to what they thought it was gonna be, and it wasn't as good as The 7-Year Slip to them, and it just didn't hit for them, okay? So I was very anxious going into this that I wasn't going to love it. Just to give you a little bit of what this is about, it's literally about our main character, Elsie. She ends up somehow in the fictional town of her favorite book, and now she's there with all of these characters that she's read about and she's learned about and she's grown to love, and there's one person there that she cannot figure out where he fits in the story, and that is her love interest. And when I tell you, this book was so good, the love Oh my god. The romance between the two of them, though I do feel like the romance in this was a bit of a slower burn, was so good. Every little crumb we were getting before it really started to build was so good in my opinion. Like, I was eating it up. Every single little thing. I was like, oh my god, I love them. I'm obsessed. But I also just loved the plot of this book. The fact that she's in this fictional town of her favorite book that she has reread so many times, and she's going through such hard things in her life. This character has, this book, I can't. She gives her characters so much depth. They both have so much to them, so much going on in their lives, and it was so beautifully done. There was lines in this that were just so beautifully written, and it was just so good. And I mean, there was a plot twist in this, and I was not expecting it. Like, I really wasn't. And when I tell you, I read it and I got full body chills and I just started crying. This book was beautifully done. This book was perfect, and I can't sit here and say anything other than that. I loved this so much. This is my newest 5-star read, 6-star read. This is a book I'm gonna be thinking about for a really long time. This is a book that I am now going to be recommending for a very long time, and this solidified how much I love Ashley Poston, because I have only read The 7-Year Slip. I do have The Dead Romantics and I want to read it soon, but reading this one and loving it even more than I love The 7-Year Slip, which is really saying something, yeah, really solidified that she's a favorite author. Auto buy, auto read. I'm obsessed. 10 out of 10 recommend. Literally would recommend this till I die. Rest of my life, I will recommend this. And next, I ended up finishing an audiobook called Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella. I'm a little iffy on how I feel about this, because there was times where I was actually really liking it, and there was times that I was like very annoyed and wasn't enjoying it and was like, she is so annoying. Like, there was just very mixed emotions while reading this book, and I think part of it is because I wasn't expecting it to be like so real, in the sense that like, this is not your cheesy romance book where like everything goes right in the relationship and they just love each other so much. Like, this felt very real, like real problems that people actually go through, and not like in a romance book where there is problems but it seems kind of far-fetched. Like, no, this felt like real. Like, these two people have met, didn't really know anything about each other, decided to keep it that way, and then are realizing that like they don't fit into each other's lives very well, and we're trying to figure out how to do that, if that makes sense. So I don't really know if I was in the mood for it when I was reading it. Like, there was parts, like I said, that I did enjoy, but there was also times where I was really not enjoying it. I don't really know. It was kind of iffy. Not something that I'm really gonna think about, not something that's my favorite. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, I believe. Honestly, now thinking about it, I probably would give it a 3. So we're gonna stick with 3. And moving on, the next book I ended up reading was The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. Again, read this on my Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I kind of just downloaded it on a whim. After reading Heavy as the Crown and Deadly as the Throne, I was really in the mood for fantasy, and I currently still am, and I have since started Quicksilver. That will be in an upcoming reading vlog. You can stay tuned for my thoughts on that for next month's wrap up, but I was just in a fantasy mood, so I downloaded it on a whim and decided to start it. Now let me just say, this is definitely a romantasy, not just a fantasy with a tiny subplot of romance. The romance is very heavy in this, but I honestly loved it. I will also say that the previous 10 books I had read or listened to before reading this had no smut. It was not existent. This, however, had some smut in it, so it felt like a lot because I had been reading some with none. So I don't know if anyone else would consider it a lot, but it felt like it because I hadn't read it in a while. But that's not saying I didn't like it. It just threw me off a little because I wasn't expecting it for some reason. But I loved the romance between our two main characters. Wow, it was so good. Our two main characters, Naira and Dacre, like, when I tell you guys, oh my god, the romance between the two of them was so good. You could literally like cut the tension with a knife, okay? It was amazing. Their banter was just, I was eating it up. I was loving every second of it. Not to mention the plot of this book is really fun. She's basically the princess. Obviously, her father is the king, but he kind of has kept her hidden away like her whole life. So she runs away and she ends up getting kind of captured by the rebellion, which is the side Dacre is on. And that's kind of the plot line of it. It's really, really fun. I really enjoyed it, and it ends on a huge cliffhanger, and I'm so excited to read the second book. I think it either like just came out or it's going to come out very, very soon. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I would honestly highly recommend, especially if you're a wanting a romantasy, if you're in that kind of vibe, and if you do like smut, I would recommend. I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. And then I ended up reading The Edens, A Legacy Story by Devony Perry. This is a short story. It's about 52 pages, and it's kind of just a little thing you can read whenever you really want during the Eden series. I have now finished the Eden series, aside from, well, I have finished this now, and the other novella, which I think is Christmas and Quincy. And I just, if you guys know, this is my favorite romance series I've ever read, so I just decided to read it. It was short. I was trying to catch up on my reading goal, and I was like, why not? This one basically is just giving you a little glimpse into the relationship between Anne and Harrison and how they came to like fall in love and get married and have babies. And oh my god, it was 52 pages and I loved it so much. I don't think I've loved 52 pages more than I loved this. It was so good. I loved seeing them as like young adults and like falling in love, and it was just so good because I love them so much in the other books. The glimpses that we get of them in the other books is so good, and so seeing and reading this was amazing and I loved every second of it. I would highly recommend this series. Please, if you haven't read it, read it. It makes me emotional. If I talk too much about it, I will genuinely start crying. So that's all. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's 52 pages. It's not going to be a 5-star read, but 4 to 5 stars. Loved. That's all the books I ended up reading in July. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are not already, because we have a lot of fun over here and we want you to join the fun. And with that being said, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Why did I say peace so high-pitched? I don't know. Anyways, I need to still film my August TBR. I'm gonna go pee and then I'm gonna film that, and you guys are gonna actually stay right there, but when I come back I'm gonna have a different shirt on, so you're not gonna know. Except if you watched this, then you'd know. It's making me hot right now. These lights are getting a little toasty. Okay. Fun fact, fave Taylor song. And said, get in the car. In the gel? Whoa. Okay. What am I saying? Sister, whoa. June book club. Whoa, that my, oh my god, I cannot speak. Get it open. The romance between, whoa. And the town said, how did a middle-class divorcee do it? Alright, I need to stop. I gotta pee really bad.